You ever been underestimated so bad it actually became your advantage? Yeah, that happened to me. I was pushing a janitor cart down the 42nd floor of Sterling Industries, marble floors shining like mirrors, everyone in heels or suits, and I hear this voice go, "Really? That's the best they could hire." No whisper, no shame, just straight up venom in designer heels. That voice belonged to Victoria Sterling. CEO. Heiress. Corporate royalty with a superiority complex so big it probably needed its own office. Now I'd been working there about 6 months, quiet, head down, just trying to hold it together for my kid. Nobody really looked me in the eye, which was fine. You learn things when people forget you're there. But that day, she was sitting there, as usual, playing chess by herself in the lobby. Some ritual she did after closing deals probably made her feel powerful. And she just kept staring at me like I was some stain on the floor she couldn't scrub out. I didn't say anything until she threw out, "You play chess?" It wasn't curiosity, it was mockery dressed up with a smile. I said, "A little." "That's it." She laughed like I'd told the world's funniest joke and turned to her assistant, who, by the way, was already filming, and said, "Let's make it fun. If you beat me in a game of chess, I'll marry you." You could feel the room shift, the kind of moment where people freeze mid-step and start pretending not to stare while recording with their phones. I knew what this was: a joke, a trap, a public show. But I also knew who I was. So I pulled out a chair and said, "All right, I accept." Now here's what Victoria didn't know: my dad was an international chess master. He taught me everything before he passed. I'd spent years studying strategy, not just on a board, but in life. She moved first Queen's Gambit, of course dramatic, flashy, loud. I answered with a night quiet, unassuming, but deadly if you know how to use it. People started gathering around like it was an office talent show. She leaned back all smug and said, "I hope you know how the pieces move." I just smiled and kept playing. 10 moves in, that smugness started to crack. 15 in, she was cornered. I looked up and said, "Checkmate." Silence. She stared at the board like it had betrayed her. Then she knocked over her king like a toddler losing at Candyland. That was a game over. The video went viral before I even got off my shift. Janitor checkmates CEO in 15 moves. You bet people were curious. Suddenly, I wasn't just the guy who emptied trash cans, I was that guy. But the real twist? I wasn't just a janitor. I had a business degree from Columbia. Used to work in finance. Life hit hard, wife passed, son got diagnosed with autism, and I took the first job that gave me healthcare and a steady paycheck. Humble work, sure, but honest. A few days later, Amanda Chun, a law school buddy, calls me up. She saw the video. She'd gone on to run one of the top law firms in the city. We met up, had coffee, and that's when things started clicking. She had access to records. I had recordings. Turns out, Victoria wasn't just arrogant, she was dangerous. Discriminatory hiring, NDAs, harsh payments for harassment complaints, the whole nine. While she was laughing about her little joke, I was building a case. When the board called an emergency meeting, she thought it was about saving face. What she didn't expect: me walking in, clean-shaven, suited up, sitting across the table. Amanda opened with, "This is David Washington, compliance consultant," and dropped a binder so thick it echoed. Emails, recordings, contracts, everything. And right there, we played the clip. Her voice, clear as day: "He's exactly the type who causes problems." And I said, "You were right. I do cause problems for people like you." The board voted. Unanimous. She was removed on the spot. Her badge deactivated before she even left the room. 6 months later, Sterling Industries got a new name and a new culture. I was promoted to Director of Diversity and Compliance. We brought back the employees she had pushed out. Productivity went up. Lawsuits went down. Turns out, when people feel seen and respected, they do better work. Who knew? And Victoria? Last I heard, she was working as a freelance consultant out of a studio apartment, pitching leadership seminars to startups that don't return her calls. I saw her once, actually elevator lobby, same building where I had a lunch meeting. She looked tired. Older. She said, I wanted to apologize for everything. I looked at her and said, you know the difference between us? You judged people for what you thought they were. I learned to listen for who they really are. She asked, have you forgiven me? I said, I didn't need to. I just needed justice. Forgiveness was never the goal, but maybe now, it's the reward. So what do you think? Did justice win? Or was this revenge with a tie on? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Let's talk about power, respect, and what happens when the people you ignore are the ones who've been planning checkmate all along.